I guess I'm a techie. I'm very busy in this incredibly synthetic world that we live in, trying to do the best I can. But right now I'd like to tell you a little bit about a different life, the non-synthetic life, the kind of life that one can only gain from going to the wilderness. The weather has cleared and I am out in the wild again. Here in the wilderness, spread out before me, the untouched beach and the spruce trees lining it, the fresh cool breeze looking down the lake, insects enjoying the flowers and fireweed flashing in the sun, the steeply angled Arctic sun rising in the northeast and now down above in the south because of the steep Arctic angle creating rich and contrasting colors and shades. Sipping my coffee and actually tasting it and feeling it spread throughout my body. Enjoying every breath of life and not just breathing, but enjoying every breath. I can only do this out here in the wild. The city is stress. The natural world is non-stress. I do not relieve my stress enjoying the ineffable beauty of the universe until I get back out and into the wild and resume what I call the non-stress. We flew out in the Cessna 206 at about noon with the sun at mid-position, but of course way to the south, creating a sparkling contrast of colors from clouds and blue sky to dark blue water and deep green trees and bushes. We first flew east along Lake Clark's shore, past Keejic River Delta, and then up past Kakmuna Lake to Twin Lakes, and landed in the view of mountains rising like an amphitheater in the eastern half of the lake. We spent some time at the now famous wilderness cabin of Dick Prenneke and imbibed the incredible skill and historic resourcefulness and artistic perfection of this lone hermit hero. The cabin built to perfection with no nails or screws, just perfect joints, the incredible log furniture and shelves, the amazing fireplace built with local stones, the log food cache built high in the air to keep away the grizzly bears, the tools and shovels made from fuel cans and log branches, a testimony to the rare man who truly led the non-synthetic life. Then we inflated our kayaks, put them into the pristine lake, and paddled off. The weather changed from hot and not wind or waves to cold and drizzly with wind at our faces and waves undulated toward the shore. And the GoPro camera was recording this all, that I will have to edit these full pages down to just a few minutes, or people will be bored. So why, I thought, will they be bored with a non-edited video of this vast beauty? Because they are not here. That is why they will be bored. They are in their comfortable suburban or urban living room, taking time out from the constant din of depressing TV news to watch an image only, and being there, they cannot feel what we feel being here. So instead of being enthralled as we are for hours and days out here, and weeks of paddling in the lakes and rivers of the Alaskan wilderness, they can only be interested for a few carefully edited minutes because they are not here. Down through the very dense forest of cottonwood and birch and spruce trees, over fallen logs and bumpy, uneven, treacherous ground, toward the east, bushwhacking our way to the Keejic River about 3 miles upstream from its mouth. It was such a joy to come out of the forest to the gravel banks of this amazing Keejic River. I would not exaggerate to say that this is my own most favorite spot in the whole world. It is one of the most pristine and fordable rivers in Alaska, and it is teeming with grayling, my favorite Arctic voracious jumping trout. I thought I was a knowledgeable fisherman, but I got a simple lesson today from my son Steve that turned an otherwise fishless day into a triumphant one. I casted a beautiful dry fly onto the stream many times until I finally got a grayling to rise and take the fly. Now, when you gently cast an artificial fly to land quietly on the bubbling current, it is always a thrill to see it suddenly chomped on by this unbelievably fast and thrashing fish that rises from the bottom and seems to come from nowhere. Then it is a fight, which connects you to the wild and pulls you out of your urban mentality, while it also gives the fish a view of life outside of his safe little underwater world. Steve came over and reminded me of something I should have known years ago about fly fishing, but now I was clumsily neglecting. Once you gently land the fly upstream, as soon as it drifts downstream, the line loosens and drifts faster than the fly, and so you have a loose line. You must adjust or mend your line so that there is no slack in it. Otherwise, the fish will easily refuse the fly because he can instantly swim backward after the bite and jiggle the fly loose without your ever even feeling it. I love looking into their wide eyes as they come out of the stream briefly to pose for a picture. Then I love to watch them scamper back into the water at lightning speed, back into their familiar universe and out of ours. Glen picked us up in the 206 at 9 a.m., and we flew 100 miles down to the huge Katmai area. The weather here is always windy and rainy and cloudy and foggy, and the landscape is rolling tundra as far as the eye can see in every direction. But it is such forbidding wilderness that it is always teeming with fish and wildlife. First, we flew to and landed at the American River that feeds into the Hammersley Lake and caught incredibly bright-colored lake trout and Arctic char and grayling. I used a very bright and large brown and red fly pattern with a small weight to carry it to the bottom. I stripped it in quickly after casting it far out into the current that was coming out from the creek, trying to mimic a hatching insect. But for most of my casts, the fish were too smart. But I did fool them a few times, and I again felt that special connection to the wild that one can only feel to the fullest when a powerful creature from the bottom of the river appears out of nowhere and takes your fly. They took my fly charging right toward me so that it was hard to keep the line tight. If the line is not tight, they can shake out the hook. If you don't use the flexing bend of the rod by lifting it up and keeping it up, or make the line tight, the fish is too powerful and can just break the line or pull out the hook. So as this huge and brightly colored lake trout took my fly, it was a real meeting of the minds. Mine and that of Glen and Steve and I were really at one with each other, sharing the mystic feeling of this rainy, windy wilderness with these incredibly powerful creatures from the deep. We videoed and photographed from many views. The GoPro camera on my head was always running. Glen took underwater pictures from another GoPro mounted on my monopod stick and from my little waterproof Sony. Steve took pictures with his fantastic Canon large format camera with his very fast zoom telephoto. But none of the videos or photos can convey what it is like just being there. The sound of the waves and the wind, the feeling of the raindrops, the immense tug and dance of the fish, the 360 degrees presence of mountains and lakeshore and sky and clouds and fog. In short, this essence of connection to the wild just laughs at our cameras. Finally, we flew out of Katmai back to the more normal weather of our beloved Lake Clark wilderness. We flew in a beaver, which is a large bush plane, to Copper River, the upper lake, and floated down the river in rubber rafts as we fished. Steve is such a great fisherman. He caught and released over 20 rainbow trout, while I caught less than 5. But it was beautiful videoing this elegant cast and the beautiful rainbow trout he pulled in. This was a very difficult transitional week for the rainbow trout. The red salmon have come into the river in droves and pushed the rainbows out of their normal resting and eating holes. Yet the salmon had not yet spawned, and so there were no salmon eggs for the rainbows to eat. So they spread out in shallow areas away from their normal eating spots. A great fisherman like Steve would catch them, but it was difficult for me. Nonetheless, it was a beautiful and colorful float with cold and rainy and windy weather alternating with warm sunshine. We saw 5 big brown bears on the river. They were right next to us on the river, only a few yards away as we passed by them. Their huge raw power seemed out of character with their lightning speed and agility. Then we saw it. We saw from a distance what looked like a dark-colored, immature bald eagle. But as we got closer, we knew we were wrong. We were stunned by its gargantuan huge size as it sat, regal and tall, on a bush close to the riverbank, startlingly close, so that as we approached, we could see it up very close. What an amazing sight. Indeed, what we discovered soon enough is that it was a rare and huge golden eagle. It actually stayed there a long time, allowing us plenty of time to gawk and video and take photos. And then it spread its huge wings, almost like Dracula, and historic flying dinosaur, and flew across the river to another perch far away. An amazing show of avian might and beauty. It emotionally made it crystal clear what was from science. Birds we went way upstream because, like on the Copper River, it is a transitional time. When the sockeye salmon are beginning to come in, push out the char and the rainbow trout, but have not yet laid their eggs. So we have to go way up the river to try to get away from the salmon, where the trout are waiting anxiously for salmon eggs to eat, in preference to wasting energy now on our nymph and fry patterns. In fact, the only thing they went for, despite the fact that salmon had not yet laid their eggs, was an egg pattern anyway, because in their anxious fish brains, all that was on their minds was salmon eggs. By the end of the day, I had caught and released 6 Arctic char, 1 huge one, 1 very good-sized one, and all with beautiful coloring to stare at. Steve caught 10 and 1 enormous champion char. This was a beautiful wild river surrounded by mountains, the mysterious feeling you get from mist and rains, followed by sunshine and then more mist and more rain and wind, and then sunshine again, and some of the most beautifully colored fish in any stream in the world to look at closely and to feel proud of being part of this world. The sound of the wind and the crashing waves is to me, perhaps not to others, like an angry Beethoven piano concerto or a howling, beating Fifth Symphony. It will not stop for 3 days. No flying or fishing or bear trekking today. Today is the day, and tomorrow and the next day, to put on every pair of warm clothes you can find and hunker down inside the cabin. Or, like me, embrace the wind, write and video it, worship it, and preserve the awesomeness of its power for others to understand. My wilderness, my natural Beethoven. I speculate, after this experience that I treasure so deeply in the wilderness and away from the synthetic world, I speculate about why there is something and not nothing in the universe. A universe without purpose or guidance, supreme being or God, may seem to some to make life meaningless, but it's even more amazing. We must be motivated to draw meaning from our own actions and to make the most of our brief existence. Blessed with consciousness, we make our own meaning. In fact, there is hardly a distinction in particle physics any longer between something and nothing. Empty space, what formerly could have passed for nothing, is not empty. Our universe evolved from a deeper nothing, dark energy, that is, the absence of space itself. In the very distant future, protons and neutrons will decay, matter will disappear, and the universe will approach a state of maximum simplicity and symmetry, which will appear to be nothing, but truly is something. In fact, cosmologists in the future we'll know nothing about the universe, because it is expanding so rapidly that eventually we will not be able to see any stars because they are so far away that unless we could travel faster than light, we cannot see them. So in my view, there is always something in what we think of as nothing, and whether that something is God, or whether that is the universe and our precious moment to be conscious of it, doesn't matter so long as we find purpose and meaning in our lives.